She was mocked for not tipping on a cappuccino. Eyes threw daggers her way, sneers hissed from behind the counter like steam from the espresso machine. Coffee brewed with charity. Writing a loan application for Starbucks? One of them joked. She didn't react. She just sat quietly, opened her notebook, and wrote until they learned the woman they'd insulted owned the entire coffee chain they worked for. Eleanor Wynne stepped into Ember and Oak's 6th branch on San Francisco's Valencia Street, the morning breeze catching the hem of her white linen dress. The cafe was a shrine to artisanal cool. Exposed brick walls, reclaimed wood tables, Edison bulbs casting a warm glow, handwritten menus hung above a sleek counter where a La Marzocco espresso machine gleamed like a trophy. At 10:43 a.m., the place was quiet with only a few customers scattered across the tables, their laptops open, their outfits curated for Instagram. Eleanor, 32, looked out of place. Her calf-length dress, with its square neckline and delicate straps, was simple, unbranded. Her flat sandals were scuffed, her tote bag worn at the edges. Her dark hair, loose and slightly tousled, framed a face bare of makeup. Her beauty was natural but understated. She carried a fabric-bound notebook, its corners frayed, its pages yellowed. To the staff she was a nobody, perhaps a suburban art teacher, lost in the city's trendiest corridor. Her eyes were quiet but piercing as they scanned the room with a calm that went unnoticed. She moved with purpose, her sandals soft on the hardwood floor, her presence a whisper in the cafe's loud aesthetic. The counter was manned by Kyle, a mid-20s cashier with a fade haircut and a leather apron. His phone was propped nearby to check his growing follower count. Raised in a middle-class Bay Area suburb, he saw Ember and Oak as a launch pad for his influencer dreams. His sharp tongue was a badge of cool. Next to him was Tara, an early 20s barista. Her black nail polish was chipped, and her latte art was a point of pride, an art school dropout from a working-class family. She wore her cynicism like armor, her smirk a defense against the world. Kyle glanced at Eleanor as she approached, his eyes raking over her dress, her sandals, her tote. He leaned toward Tara, his whisper loud enough to carry. New customer vibe. Broke cottage core, Tara mid-poured, snorting. Her wrist flicked to finish a latte leaf. Probably thinks this is a free espresso commune, she muttered, her voice dripping with disdain. The few customers nearby, a woman in athleisure, a man in a light suit, glanced up, their smiles faint but complicit. Eleanor reached the counter, her tote brushing her hip, and smiled softly. "I'll have a cappuccino, no syrup, double shot," she said, her voice gentle but clear, cutting through the counter's hum. As Eleanor approached the counter, a group of regulars at a nearby table, laptops adorned with trendy stickers, joined the fray. A woman with a nose ring and a cropped jacket leaned forward, her voice loud enough to carry. "Is she seriously ordering here? The dress looks like it's from a flea market." Her friend, a man with a man bun and a vintage scarf, laughed sharply. "Bet she's going to ask for a discount next, or maybe she'll barter with her knitting." The table erupted in snickers, their eyes fixed on Eleanor's linen dress, her scuffed sandals, as if her presence offended their curated aesthetic. Kyle, catching their comments, added fuel. His voice dripped with mockery. "Don't worry folks, we'll get her coffee out quick. She's probably late for her commune meeting." The regulars' laughter grew bolder, their phones angled to snap subtle photos. Their disdain was a palpable force. Eleanor's smile didn't waver as she ordered, but the air around her thickened with contempt. Each word a calculated jab at her quiet dignity. She stood calm, her tote bag at her side, her silence a stark contrast to the cafe's cruelty. Yet the barrage of insults seemed to press against her like a storm. Kyle didn't respond. He punched the order into the POS system, his fingers slamming the keys with deliberate force. His eyes never met hers. The tablet swiveled, its screen glowing with tip options. 15%, 20%, 25%, or no tip. Eleanor's finger hovered over the options. Then with a steady hand she pressed no tip. The air in the cafe tightened. The warmth that had filled the space seemed to turn cold. Tara, wiping down the espresso machine, called out to a coworker in the back. Her voice was sharp, theatrical. Yo Mia. We got a charity case up front. No tip, but she wants her fancy double shot. Mia, a barista with a septum piercing, poked her head out. Her laugh cut through the room. What's she think we're running a soup kitchen now? That tote bag's probably her whole wardrobe. The customers nearby joined in their chuckles, a chorus of disdain. Derek the tech bro leaned back in his chair. His voice booming, he added, "Hey lady, tips are not optional. If you want to play high-end, maybe stick to instant coffee next time." The room's laughter crashed over Eleanor as she waited for her change. Her hands remained steady, but the coins Kyle slapped onto the counter seemed to carry the weight of their mockery. The cafe's energy was venomous now, each taunted dagger aimed at her simplicity. Yet she didn't flinch. Her eyes remained fixed on the cup, her silence a shield against their hate. Kyle slapped the change onto the counter with a sharp clink and turned away. Tara finished the cappuccino, her movements theatrical, and set the cup down with a thud. The coffee was scalding hot, no lid provided. She didn't call Eleanor's name, didn't offer the drink, just left it there like scraps for a stray. Eleanor stepped forward, her sandals whispering on the floor, and reached for the cup. Her fingers grazed the burning ceramic, her hands trembling slightly from the heat. She fumbled for a lid from a stack nearby. Her movements were awkward under the counter's harsh glare. Her dress caught a stray drop of coffee. Kyle watched, his smirk widening. "Careful, don't burn yourself," he said, his tone mocking. Tara leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Need a straw for that, hun?" she asked, her voice a knife. Derek, now seated nearby, chuckled. His suit pristine, he added, "Maybe she's saving her tip money for a real cafe," his voice loud enough for the room to hear. Eleanor fitted the lid, her hands steadying, and walked to a corner table. Her tote swung lightly by her side. Her composure remained unbroken as she sat down. The table was small and wobbly, its surface scarred from years of use. The morning light filtered through the window, catching the faint stains on her dress, the simplicity of her sandals. She opened her tote, pulling out her fabric-bound notebook. Its cover was worn but lovingly maintained. The pages crinkled as she opened it, revealing neat handwriting, lists and sketches, a map of her vision though no one knew it. She began to write, her pen moving with quiet precision, her eyes focused. Her mind was elsewhere. As Eleanor sat at her corner table opening her notebook, a group of influencers at a nearby table took notice. Their voices dripped with mockery. A woman with a pastel scrunchie and a ring light in her bag leaned toward her friends, her tone cutting. "Look at her, writing like she's in a Jane Austen novel. What's she planning, a thrift store takeover?" Her friend, a guy with a beanie and a tattooed forearm, laughed loudly. "Nah, she's probably drafting her apology for not tipping. Gotta practice for the poorhouse." The group's laughter was sharp. Their phones raced to capture Eleanor's solitude. Their comments were a performance for each other. Tara, overhearing, called out from the counter. "Hey scribe, don't forget to tip next time you're inspired." The cafe's regulars joined in their jeers, a chorus that echoed off the brick walls. Eleanor's pen moved steadily. Her face remained calm, but the barrage of insults seemed to hang in the air like a storm. She navigated it without a glance. The cafe's disdain was relentless, each taunted jab at her simplicity. Yet she held her ground. Her silence wasn't surrender, it was strength. A barista named Leo, who had been cleaning tables, paused near Eleanor's corner. His rag dripped with cleaner. He looked at her dress, her sandals, and snorted. His voice carried to the counter. "This one's got no business here. No tip, no style. Why is she even taking up space?" Kyle, catching the comment, laughed and shouted back, "Maybe she's scouting for her Etsy shop. Gotta sell those tote bags somewhere." The room roared with laughter. The customer in a denim jacket, her earbuds dangling, joined in, her voice loud. "I bet she's writing a manifesto on how to mooch free coffee," she said. The staff and customers fed off each other. Their mockery became a feeding frenzy aimed at Eleanor's quiet presence. Leo sprayed cleaner near her table, the mist grazing her dress. His grin was taunting. "Oops, didn't see you there," he said, his tone anything but apologetic. Eleanor's pen paused briefly, her eyes flicking to the mist, but she resumed writing. Her face remained a mask of calm, her silence a defiance that went unnoticed. The cafe's cruelty was a wall pressing against her from all sides, but she didn't bend. Her focus was her shield against their venom. Her silence wasn't surrender. It was a lesson learned long ago in a small town, where she had been the girl no one noticed. The one who turned a single coffee stand into an empire. Her husband, a tech mogul, had funded the expansion of Ember and Oak, admired her for this ability, her ability to let the world underestimate her. Knowing her worth didn't require their validation. The cafe's scorn was a test, one she'd faced in 26 other branches. Each visit a step in her mission to reclaim the soul of the chain she had built. Kyle leaned over the counter, his voice carrying to Tara. "Look at her, scribbling like she's got a plan," he said, his smirk sharp. "What's she writing?" "A loan application for Starbucks." Tara laughed, her black nails tapping the counter. "Or maybe a GoFundMe story," she added, her voice loud enough to turn heads. The woman in athleisure glanced over, her smile cruel. "She's probably journaling about her authentic experience," she said, her air quotes dripping with mockery. Derek adjusted his tie. His voice smooth but cutting, he added, "Bet she's sketching her dream job, barista at a gas station." The room fed on their disdain. Each jab was a brick in the wall of Eleanor's humiliation. But Eleanor wrote on, her pen steady, her face calm. Her thoughts drifted back to the early days of Ember and Oak when she had served coffee herself. When every customer had been a guest, not a transaction. The cafe's current culture was a far cry from her vision. It stung, but she didn't flinch. Her silence was her power, a choice rooted in years of proving herself without a word. The cafe's door swung open at 10:59 a.m. The chime was sharp in the quiet. Louise Tron, Regional Operations Director for EMO Holdings, stepped inside. Her black suit was tailored to perfection, her gaze like a blade. A Vietnamese-American executive who had clawed her way through corporate ranks, Louise was fiercely loyal to Eleanor. She was Eleanor's mentor, the woman who'd given her a chance. Behind Louise were two men in black dress shirts, their faces unreadable, and a professional videographer whose camera was discreet but active. The room stilled. The counter's laughter died like a snuffed flame. "Who served the woman in the white dress this morning?" Louise asked. Each word deliberate, her voice cutting through the air. Kyle stepped forward, his confidence unshaken, his apron creased. "I did," he said, his tone defiant. "Problem?" Louise flipped her name tag, the gold glinting under the Edison bulbs. "I'm Louise Tron, Regional Operations Director for EMO Holdings, the conglomerate that owns Ember and Oak," she said. "And she gestured to Eleanor, who stood, her sandals soft on the floor, her tote at her side, "is the one you just humiliated." The room gasped. The sound was sharp and collective. Kyle's smirk vanished, his hands freezing on the counter. Tara's black nails dug into her palms, her latte art forgotten. Derek's tie suddenly felt too tight, his suit no longer a shield. The woman in athleisure lowered her phone, her face pale. Eleanor's voice was calm, her words measured, but they carried the weight of truth. "I'm the founder of this brand," she said, her eyes locking onto Kyle, then Tara. "The one who's walked through 27 branches in 4 months. No makeup, no business cards, no warnings. And at the branch I hoped would set the standard for kindness, I was just called linen-clad garbage." Her words hung in the air, a quiet indictment. As Eleanor's badge gleamed, she faced the room. Her linen dress was a symbol of her unyielding strength. The woman in athleisure who had mocked her earlier whispered to her friend, "We had no idea. She's the founder." Her friend pale nodded. Her phone forgotten. Josh, the manager, tried to speak, his voice weak. "We didn't know. We'd never." Eleanor cut him off, her gaze piercing. "You didn't need to know who I was to treat me like a person," she said, her words a quiet thunder. "Your job was to serve, not to judge." The videographer's camera captured the moment, its lens a silent witness to the staff's downfall. Louise added, "This branch was meant to embody Eleanor's vision. You turned it into a clique." Now you face the consequences. The cafe's mirrors reflected the staff's downcast faces, their cool personas dismantled. Eleanor's presence was a rebuke. Her authority undeniable. The audience felt a surge of satisfaction as the bully's world collapsed under the weight of their own cruelty. Tara stammered, her voice breaking. "You're who?" she asked, her eyes wide with panic. The cafe's regulars watched in stunned silence as Eleanor spoke. Their earlier mockery now a source of shame. Derek, the tech bro, stood to leave, his suit rumpled, but Louise's voice stopped him. "Sit down, sir," she said, her tone unyielding. "You mocked a customer for your amusement. That's not the culture we tolerate." Derek's face reddened, his tech bro bravado crumbling. His name was now tied to a moment of public disgrace. Tara's eyes glistened, her voice barely a whisper. I thought she was nobody," she said, her art school pride shattered. Eleanor's gaze softened, but her words were firm. "You thought wrong. And that's why this branch failed." The staff's phones, once props for their cool image, lay silent. Their social media dreams tarnished. The videographer zoomed in on Eleanor's badge, its gold a symbol of her authority, her vision. The cafe's culture was exposed. Its arrogance a lesson for all. Eleanor stood calmly, her notebook open, her badge gleaming under the Edison bulbs. "I built Ember and Oak to be a place of respect," she said, her voice steady. "You turned it into a stage for your egos. That ends now." The cafe's silence was a surrender. The staff's arrogance exposed. Their punishment, a justice that left the audience cheering for Eleanor's quiet triumph. The videographer's camera worked, capturing the moment, a record for the company's archives, not for public spectacle. Louise stepped forward, her voice like steel. "The entire staff of this branch, including the manager, is suspended indefinitely," she announced. "A full restructuring is coming. And effective today, all POS systems across the chain will remove tipping options." As Louise announced the staff suspension, the cafe's air grew heavy with shock. Kyle's face crumpled, his influencer swagger gone. His phone hung limply in his hand, suspended. He stammered, his voice cracking. "For what? Serving her coffee?" Louise's eyes narrowed, her voice like ice. "For treating a customer, your founder, like garbage. You mocked her dress, her choices, her existence. You failed the standard she set for this company." The regulars at the tables lowered their phones. Their earlier laughter now a bitter memory. Tara's hands shook, her black nails digging into her apron. Her art school bravado shattered. Derek sank back into his chair, his tech bro confidence evaporated. His name now a cautionary tale in San Francisco's startup scene. Eleanor stood calmly, her notebook open, her badge glinting under the Edison bulbs. "I built Ember and Oak from a single stand," she said, her voice soft but unyielding. "I poured my life into making a place where people felt welcomed, not judged. And today, you showed me how far this branch has strayed." Her thoughts flickered to her husband, whose tech fortune had scaled her dream. But his faith in her vision mattered more. She'd never needed his wealth to define her. She'd earned her place. From a small-town girl mocked for her simplicity to a billionaire who chose linen over labels. Kyle's face was ashen, his influencer dreams crumbling. His phone, now a useless prop, hung limply in his hand. "This can't be happening," he muttered, but no one responded. Their silence was a condemnation. Louise hung the sign on the door, its words simple but impactful. "We don't accept tips because kindness isn't retail." A manifesto that echoed Eleanor's vision. The regular at the counter, the woman with the nose ring, whispered, "We were so wrong. She's the one who made this place." Her friend, the man with the man bun, nodded. His scarf limp, his earlier taunts a regret. Eleanor's dress caught the light as she turned, her sandals steady on the floor. Her tote bag swung lightly at her side, a symbol of her humility. "This chain was built on respect," she said, her voice clear. "You sold it for tips. I'm taking it back." The audience felt a rush of triumph. The staff's punishment was a fitting end to their cruelty. Eleanor's authority, a beacon of justice in the cafe's dim light. The videographer zoomed in, capturing the camera's lens on the sign's grain. a symbol of Eleanor's reset. Kyle stood frozen, his apron limp. His dreams of influencer fame now a distant hope. Tara's hands shook. Her latte art forgotten, her cynicism no match for the truth. Derek loosened his tie. His tech bro bravado humbled. His name likely blacklisted from Ember and Oak's future. The woman in athleisure slipped out, her latte untouched, her confidence shattered. The cafe's culture, once defined by its cool, was now a blank slate, ready for Eleanor's vision to reclaim it. She turned her tote over her shoulder, her notebook in hand, and walked out. Her linen dress caught the breeze, a quiet force leaving chaos in her wake. The cafe stood silent as the door closed, the scent of espresso lingering, the Edison bulbs casting long shadows. Days later, the cafe's regulars gathered in hushed groups, their voices low as they recounted the fallout. "I saw Kyle yesterday," one said, shaking his head. "He's working at a gas station now. No phone, no followers." Tara had left the city, another said. Her latte art a forgotten skill. Her art school dreams buried under the weight of her suspension. Derek avoided Valencia Street. His tech bro reputation tarnished. His name a cautionary tale in San Francisco's startup scene. The sign on Ember and Oak's door had become a symbol, its message spreading to other branches, reshaping the chain's culture. Eleanor's no-tip policy was a revolution. A reminder that respect wasn't a transaction. The cafe's mirrors reflected a quieter space now, its cool facade replaced by a humbler energy. Her husband, whose tech empire had quietly backed her vision, sent her a text that day. "You changed the game." Proud. Eleanor didn't need the praise. She'd done it for herself, for the chain, and for every customer who'd ever felt less than. Eleanor didn't need the validation. She had done it for herself and for the chain she had built, where every customer, regardless of their background, was treated with kindness and respect. The words from her husband were a reminder of what she had accomplished, but they weren't necessary to validate her success. She had always known her worth. The cafe, once bustling with smugness and a toxic sense of superiority, was now left with the aftermath of its actions. The sign on the door, "We don't accept tips because kindness isn't retail," was more than just a message. It was a shift in culture, one that spread beyond the walls of Ember and Oak. It was a statement that respect, compassion, and integrity would always come before superficiality and judgment. As she walked out, her steps steady, her dress flowing behind her, Eleanor left behind more than just the staff who had mocked her. She left a new standard. Reset. Outside the cafe, the San Francisco air was cool, the streets alive with the hum of the city. Eleanor didn't stop, didn't look back. She had already reclaimed her vision. This was just one step in the journey. Days later, the cafe's regulars continued to talk about what had happened. News of the incident spread through social media. Videos of Eleanor's quiet power and the staff's public humiliation went viral. The cafe became the talk of the city, but not for the reasons Ember and Oak had once hoped for. "What happened to Kyle?" one regular asked. "He's working at a gas station now." "No followers, no fame," came the reply. "And Tara?" another asked, her voice low. "She left the city. Her dreams of latte art shattered," someone else responded. Derek, once a rising tech star, had all but disappeared from the scene. His name, once associated with innovation and influence, was now tied to a moment of public disgrace. And as for the cafe, it was never the same. Its once cool facade was now gone, replaced by a culture of kindness, authenticity, and respect. The new customers came not to admire the aesthetic or snap photos, but to enjoy their coffee in peace, free from the mockery that had once permeated every interaction. The chain's other branches followed suit, adopting the new policy and culture. The tipping options were removed from all POS systems. The focus shifted from superficial status to true human connection. Customers came in and were treated with dignity, just as Eleanor had always intended. Ember and Oak became a place where people didn't just come for coffee. They came for a community. A community where every person, whether rich or poor, famous or unknown, was treated with respect. In the weeks that followed, Eleanor received messages from many of her employees, both past and present, thanking her for standing up for what was right. They told her how her actions had inspired them, How they had realized that kindness was a more powerful currency than any tip could ever be. As for Eleanor, she didn't need the recognition. She didn't need the accolades or the praise. She had already won. She had restored her vision to the brand, making it more than just a business. It had become a movement. And when she received a message from her husband again, he simply said, "You changed the game. I'm proud of you." She smiled to herself as she read the message. It wasn't the first time she had received such words from him. But this time they felt different. This time it was a reminder of how far she had come, not just as a businesswoman, but as a person who had always known her worth, even when the world around her didn't see it. Her journey wasn't about building an empire or gaining fame. It was about reclaiming what mattered most: respect, dignity, and the power of quiet strength. In the weeks following Eleanor's quiet triumph, the transformation at Ember and Oak was undeniable. The cafe's atmosphere had shifted from one of elitism to one of inclusion. The staff who had once mocked her now worked under the scrutiny of a new culture, one of respect, empathy, and understanding. Eleanor, however, was not in the spotlight. She continued to quietly guide the company from behind the scenes, ensuring the changes she had made were not just a temporary reaction but a lasting revolution. She spent her days visiting other branches, meeting employees, and listening to their concerns. She wanted to hear their stories, their frustrations, and their dreams. Through these conversations, she learned what had truly been missing from the company she had created: real human connection. It had become too focused on the aesthetics, the trendy image, and the influencers. But now, those superficial layers were gone, replaced by an authentic approach that valued kindness and respect over Instagram likes or viral fame. The cafe's regulars, once the source of mockery and disdain, now came for the coffee and stayed for the community. The mockery was gone, and in its place was a group of individuals, just people, coming together to share a cup of coffee and a moment of peace in their busy lives. People from all walks of life, from artists to tech workers, from college students to parents, all gathered under the same roof, enjoying each other's company without judgment. Eleanor's actions rippled through the city, sparking conversations and inspiring other businesses to rethink their policies. It wasn't just Ember and Oak that had changed, it was the community surrounding it. The culture of cruelty that had once defined the cafe was now replaced by one of generosity, humility, and respect for every individual. And as for the staff who had mocked Eleanor, Kyle, Tara, Derek, and the others, they were no longer part of the cafe's story. The video footage of their public disgrace had spread across the city, and the world had taken notice. Their reputation, once built on a fake sense of superiority, was now tarnished beyond repair. Kyle was no longer seen in the trendy coffee scene. His dream of becoming an influencer had been shattered. He had learned the hard way that kindness couldn't be bought with followers. Tara, once so proud of her latte art, had moved out of the city, her dreams fading as quickly as the ink on her resignation letter. Derek's tech career had crumbled, and he had become a cautionary tale in Silicon Valley. As for Eleanor, her quiet resolve had proven to be her greatest weapon. She didn't need to scream or fight back. Her actions spoke louder than any words could ever have. She had not only reclaimed the soul of her company but had also shown the world the power of patience, dignity, and staying true to one's principles. One evening, as Eleanor sat in the quiet corner of one of the branches, she received another message from her husband. It was simple, just a few words, but they meant everything to her. "You changed the game," the text read. Proud. Eleanor smiled, her heart warm. But this time she didn't need his approval. She had already won. She had changed the game not for fame or fortune but for something far more important: the chance to build a legacy based on respect, kindness, and integrity. Her empire, built from the ground up, was no longer just a business. It was a beacon of what the world could be. A place where people treated each other with dignity and understanding, no matter their background or their status. Eleanor Wynne had created something far more powerful than a successful cafe chain. She had created a movement, a quiet revolution in a world that needed it more than ever. As she walked out into the evening, the city lights twinkling in the distance, Eleanor felt a sense of peace. She had made her mark. And it was only just the beginning.